Hello friends, welcome back to my channel The Data Engineering Experience, and today we are going to cover two very important features in BigQuery: table snapshots and table functions. So what are table snapshots? As the name suggests, it's a point in time snapshot of a table. So it's a way of preserving the contents of a table. Then the next question that should come to your mind is, how is it different from the time travel feature available in BigQuery? Unlike the time travel feature, table snapshots can store the data of a table indefinitely, whereas this time travel feature allows you to store data only up to 7 days. Another very interesting feature of table snapshot is that you pay only for the data that has changed from the source table. In other words, you are paying only for the delta. Therefore, when a table snapshot is created, it requires no additional storage cost. We will now dive into the syntax and usage of this table snapshots. Right now I am in the BigQuery studio, and let me show you how to create table snapshots. So for today we will be creating a snapshot of this bike share trips table. So let me open and show it. Let's preview the table. So you can see it contains the data date, the trip ID, the subscriber type, the bike ID, the bike type, and all other relevant information regarding the bike share trips. So we'll be creating a clone of the same table. So let me open a new window. Also let me just copy the table name. So the syntax is quite simple. I'll use create snapshot table. I will not create it in this dataset but in the table snapshot dataset. TABLE SNFP shots table, and then we have to use the clone keyword and then the table name. So the table name would be the same, and then you can also specify the options, like if you want the table snapshot to expire after certain days, you can use these options. So I will set as expiration timestamp, then I will use the timestamp add because it will be on a future date, so it will be timestamp add, then current timestamp, and then let me also specify the interval to 2 days. Fine. Okay, I forgot to add the add keyword, so it's done. So the query is successful. Let me just trigger it. So yes, I have created this snapshot of the table. Let me just open it. Let me go into the details. So you can see it's showing as snapshot, the snapshot time, the snapshot info. Also you can see that my total bytes that it's consuming is 0. Right now I'm going to show you how to create table snapshots dynamically. So for that I'll be using this stored procedure. In this stored procedure you can see I have declared all the necessary variables. So you can ignore this log date and custom message for now. They are basically used for error handling, like if the procedure fails, then what should be my custom message and a corresponding log date. But rest you can see like the project name, the dataset name, and the table name. And we also have the stored query here. This would basically store the final query before we trigger the execute immediate block. So in this part you can see I am using a for loop and I am querying the information schema to select where the table type is a base table and not a snapshot table, and I have picked up a random table name from there. You can filter out any table names, but I have specifically picked up the taxi trip dataset. I'm sorry, the taxi trip table name. Then I am initializing all the variables here, and I'm also attaching a underscore TSS. This is basically to highlight that it is a table snapshot. Then you can see I have used this query to generate the snapshot table. So it's creating a snapshot table of a certain table that I have declared here. Then I'm specifying the optional parameters here, and then I'm declaring the variables. And where will the table be created? In the table snapshot dataset. So that is being hard coded. You can ignore this drop snapshot table here. This is basically for rerunnability. So if you are triggering this procedure again and again, so like if it tries to create a same table snapshot of the existing table, then this create snapshot block will fail. So I have inserted a drop snapshot table query here. So like before it runs the snapshot table, it will drop the existing snapshot table if it is there. So let me just deploy this table. I'm sorry, this stored procedure. Fine, the procedure has run successfully. Then let me trigger it. So I'll use the call this and let me check what happens. So the procedure has been deployed, and yes, I think it has created this snapshot table. So yes, it's here. Check. Yep, it's successful. The table snapshot is here, and also the long-term storage bytes and the total physical bytes, the active physical bytes, all are 0. So it's taking up the same space that the original base table is taking. No extra space required. Now we'll be discussing the limitations of the table snapshots. So here is the first one. To take a table snapshot, it must be from the same region as the same organization as the base table. So you cannot create a table where the organization or the source of the table is different. It must be residing in the same region. Also, the table snapshots are read only, so you cannot do any modifications to a table snapshot. Another thing is that the time travel feature has a 7 days limit. So if you are trying to have a table snapshot of any table that has been deleted before those 7 days, then you cannot do that. So the any table that you create a snapshot of should be within the last 7 days. The fourth point is you cannot create a snapshot of a view, any materialized view or any external tables. So yeah, these three things you cannot create snapshots. Fifth point is that you cannot overwrite an existing snapshot. So the only way is to drop it and then recreate it or create a table snapshot with a different name. The sixth point is that if a partition table with a partition expiration is snapshotted, the partition expiration information will not be retained. So like if you are having a partition expiration on a table, like the partition will expire after 1 year, 2 years, so that metadata is not being copied to the snapshot table. The final point is that the snapshot table use the destination datasets default partition expiration. So like to preserve the partition expiration, copy the table instead of like taking a snapshot of it. So why are table snapshot useful? So you can use table snapshot for your compliance reporting. Then they can be used for debugging your complex ETL pipelines. You can also use table snapshots for auditing your data. Then you can use it for any historical analysis because these are snapshots, right? So it will contain all the historical data from the point where you have created the snapshot. So you can have a snapshot of a table multiple times, and you can basically check it how the data is changing. Then you can use it for disaster recovery purposes. Disaster recovery, you can use table snapshot to use it as a backup mechanism in case you have like any loss of data or if there is any corruption in the data. So you can take multiple table snapshots and you can like keep on dropping the older snapshots, and you can always create a fresh snapshot of your table, and then if there is an issue or there is a corruption of data, you can always restore it from this snapshot table. Now we are going to cover the second topic for today, table functions. So what are table functions? Table functions are basically a user defined functions that instead of returning a logic, it returns the content of a table. So it can be content of just one table or multiple tables. These table functions are very much similar to views, but unlike this normal views, table functions can take in query parameters. Now we shall learn how to define table functions. So the syntax is quite simple. We will use the create or replace table function, then we will define the function name, then we will pass the query parameters, like what are the parameters or the things it should take as input. So here I am inputting the date and the payment mode as string type. And what is the output of this function? It's the trip date, the trip time in seconds, and the payment type. And then what is the function doing? We are selecting these three return types, the trip date, the trip time in seconds, the payment mode, from one of my table which is partition, and I am using these parameters like the trip date and the payment mode, which is being user defined as the directly within the query itself. So whatever the variable value you are passing in this two variables, it will get substituted here, and the query will run only for those two parameters. Now we will see the same table function in BigQuery Studio. Right now we are in BigQuery Studio, and as you can see, I have copied the same taxi trips date table function here. Let me just deploy it. So the table function has been deployed successfully. Let us also look at this taxi trip data partition dataset. So you can see like it's partitioned by day, and it's the trip date column which is the partitioning field. We can also look at the other fields, the trip date, the unique ID, the taxi ID, the trip start date, end date, and various other fields. We will also see that the table has size of around 2.5 GB. We can also verify whether a table function hits the partitions or not. So yes, we can see that it's partition on this uh, taxi trips and the trip date parameter. So this is the partitioning column, and since we are partitioning like we are passing this trip date as a parameter, so it's querying only for that specific partition. So let us just run the query. Yes, it's working fine, and we can also get the data. So that was a simple example. We can also use complex transformations using this table function. So you can see my input parameters remains the same. It's the trip date and the payment mode. But please note that I have passing this payment mode as array of strings. And what are my return types? It's the trip date, the payment type, and the total. It's basically the sum of trip total, like it's the total amount of money that is generated for on that particular trip date per payment type. So like my where condition remains the same except the payment type, where I am taking this payment mode, I am unnesting it, basically flattening the array, and I am passing this unnested array as an input to this payment type, and then I am grouping it. So let me just deploy it. So yes, it has successfully deployed. Now in this next statement, I'm going to pass the same date but two payment modes. One is the cash and one is the credit card. And we are going to check how much revenue it generated. So let me run it. So you can see it has successfully transformed the data, and for the cash we have generated this much amount, and for the credit card we have generated this much amount. So that's all for today. If you like the content, please like and subscribe and share it with your friends and colleagues. Also, if you have any queries with any of my content, feel free to comment and I will try to address them as soon as possible. Thank you and see you in the next video.